Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back in time, way back, to a land built on lakes and dreams, where a king held court in a city shimmering with gold and jade. Imagine yourself, if you will, trudging through the humid air of central Mexico. The year is roughly 1519. The scent of copal incense mixes with the earthy tang of damp soil, and the distant, rhythmic thrum of drums seems to beat in sync with your own heart. Around you, life pulses with an intensity that might make your modern mind reel. You see vibrant market stalls overflowing with unfamiliar fruits, hear the chatter of thousands of voices in Nahuatl, and watch as canoes glide silently across the vast, sparkling expanse of Lake Texcoco. You're not just a tourist. You're an uninvited guest in the grand capital of Tenochtitlan, the heart of the Aztec Empire. And up ahead, nestled amidst this floating metropolis, lies something truly extraordinary: the private zoological collection of Emperor Montezuma II. You probably won't survive this experience, by the way, not with the peculiar diet and unfamiliar diseases, but let's not dwell on that. We're here to relax, remember? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always fun to imagine folks drifting off across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're here on the shores of Lake Texcoco, which, by the way, was a complex system of interconnected lakes, not just one big puddle. The Aztecs, those ingenious folks, had managed to build a monumental city, a true Venice of the Americas, right in the middle of it. As you approach the city walls, you can't help but be struck by the sheer audacity of it all. Causeways, wide and meticulously paved, stretch out over the water, connecting the island to the mainland. Every few hundred yards, there are gaps spanned by wooden bridges, which could be pulled up at a moment's notice, transforming the city into an impenetrable fortress. Think of it as ancient drawbridges, but on a city-wide scale. Pretty clever, right? As you cross one of these bridges, perhaps feeling a gentle sway beneath your feet, you notice the incredible order amidst the apparent chaos. Canals crisscross the city, acting as watery streets, bustling with canoes laden with goods, obsidian tools, cotton cloaks, vibrant feathers, and strange, delicious-smelling foods. The air itself seems thick with the aroma of roasting maize and the subtle, sweet scent of exotic flowers. The houses, mostly made of adobe and topped with flat roofs, are often painted in bright, earthy tones, reflecting the sun. But towering above them all, dominating the skyline, are the massive pyramids, the grandest, of course, being the Templo Mayor, dedicated to the gods of war and rain. You might even catch a glimpse of priests, their long, matted hair adorned with feathers, moving with purposeful strides up the steep temple steps. Mainstream historical fact for you: the Templo Mayor was continually expanded and rebuilt over centuries, each new layer encasing the previous one, like a set of divine Russian dolls. Imagine the archaeological dig that must have been. You find yourself drawn towards the central precinct, where the most magnificent structures stand. The sounds here are different. Too less the shouts of vendors, more the murmur of important conversations, the soft rustle of expensive textiles, and the occasional, piercing cry of an exotic bird. This, you realize, is the heart of Montezuma's power, his palace, and the sprawling complex that houses his unimaginable treasures. And among those treasures, as you'll soon discover, are living, breathing wonders from every corner of his vast empire and beyond. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs truly grasped the concept of empire in the European sense, or if it was more a hegemonic system of tribute and alliances. Either way, Montezuma certainly had a lot of tribute, including animals. As you move deeper into Tenochtitlan, the sheer scale of Montezuma's realm becomes more apparent. You're not just walking through a city. You're walking through a carefully orchestrated marvel of engineering and human ingenuity. The air now carries the faint but distinct smell of exotic animal musk, hinting at what lies ahead. Imagine the sounds, too. Not just the human chatter, but the distant squawk of a macaw, the rustle of unseen wings, perhaps even the low growl of something powerful. It's a symphony of a thriving metropolis, but with an animalistic undercurrent that suggests something truly unique is hidden within its heart. You approach the grandest complex of all, Montezuma's royal palace. This wasn't just a single building. It was an expansive labyrinth of courtyards, residential quarters, administrative offices, and of course, those magnificent gardens and animal houses. The walls are not just stone. They're carved with intricate designs, often depicting feathered serpents, jaguars, and eagle, symbols of Aztec power and cosmology. As you pass through a wide entrance, perhaps adorned with shimmering obsidian, you step into a world of surprising tranquility, a stark contrast to the busy causeways outside. The palace grounds are meticulously maintained. You see sweeping courtyards where the emperor might receive dignitaries, or where his vast retinue of servants and nobles would go about their daily lives. There are private chambers for Montezuma himself, said to be adorned with precious metals and vibrant feather mosaics that shimmer with every shift of light. Think of it like a very, very grand, ancient version of a modern-day government building mixed with a luxury resort, all under one very large ceremonial roof. The sheer number of people living and working within this complex would be staggering, almost a city within a city. But your eyes, and perhaps your ears, are drawn to something beyond the human activity. You start to see hints of the emperor's peculiar passion. Perhaps a glimpse through an open doorway reveals a vibrant splash of color, a scarlet macaw, perched on a stand, preening its magnificent feathers. Or maybe you hear the soft cooing of doves from a secluded garden. Their gentle sounds a soothing balm to the senses. This isn't just about display. It's about control, about collecting the essence of the empire and perhaps the world within his personal domain. The palace complex was a testament to Aztec architectural prowess. Historians still argue whether the Aztec stone structures were primarily built using freehand artistic vision or if they employed some form of rudimentary blueprints or scale models. Either way, the precision is remarkable. You might observe canals gently flowing through parts of the complex, fed by fresh springs, providing both beauty and practical water access. Gardens, verdant and meticulously manicured, are interspersed throughout, not just for aesthetics, but also for growing medicinal plants and ceremonial flowers. This blend of natural beauty and human construction is characteristic of Aztec design. It's here, within this expansive royal precinct, that Montezuma housed his famed collection. It wasn't merely a jumble of cages. It was a series of specialized enclosures designed to replicate, as much as possible, the natural habitats of the creatures within. A truly quirky tidbit, considering the technology available. There's evidence suggesting they used ingenious systems of diverted waterways and varying soil types to create microclimates within their botanical and zoological gardens. Imagine the effort involved in maintaining the perfect humidity for tropical birds or the specific soil for high-altitude plants, all without modern climate control. It makes your indoor plant collection seem rather low maintenance, doesn't it? You might even chuckle at the thought of an Aztec gardener stressing over a wilting fern. The very air seems to hum with life here, a gentle cacophony of chirps, tweets, and soft rustles. You are about to step into the world of Montezuma's zoological wonders, where the wild heart of Mesoamerica was brought within the walls of an emperor's palace. A collection not just for entertainment, but for scientific study, ritual, and a quiet display of immense power. You find yourself standing on the edge of what can only be described as a grand, royal menagerie, nestled within the palace complex. It's not a single building, remember, but a series of interconnected structures and open-air enclosures. Imagine stepping from a shaded, cool hallway into a sun-drenched courtyard, where the air hums with the soft buzzing of insects and the gentle rustle of leaves. You might first notice the meticulously manicured gardens, brimming with native flora. These aren't just decorative. Many of the plants would have been chosen for their medicinal properties, their vibrant colors, or their ritualistic significance. It's a sensory feast before you even get to the animals. One of the most impressive sections, and one that immediately draws your attention, would be the extensive aviaries. Montezuma, like many Aztec nobles, had a profound fascination with birds, particularly those with vibrant, iridescent plumage. You can imagine a colossal structure, perhaps with walls of finely woven reeds or light wood, covered overhead with netting strong enough to contain even the most powerful birds. Stepping inside, the air would instantly become alive with a kaleidoscope of color and a cacophony of sound. Think of it as a walk-in bird sanctuary, but on a truly imperial scale. You'd see quetzal, their long, emerald tail feathers shimmering like liquid jewels as they perch serenely on branches. These birds were so revered that they were only ever captured and released after their precious feathers were gently plucked, never killed. Their feathers were reserved exclusively for royalty and high priests, woven into magnificent headdresses, cloaks, and ceremonial shields. It's hard to imagine the patience required to gather enough quetzal feathers for a single royal garment. You might even hear the soft, almost melodious calls of other tropical birds, parrots of every hue, from brilliant scarlet macaws to vibrant blue and yellow ones, squawking and chattering among themselves. There would be toucans with their oversized, colorful beaks, and a myriad of smaller, equally dazzling birds flitting through the carefully cultivated foliage. This wasn't just about collecting pretty birds. It was about power and symbolism. Mainstream historical fact: the Aztecs believed that birds were messengers from the gods, and their feathers were considered more precious than gold. Owning and displaying such a vast collection of rare birds was a direct reflection of Montezuma's wealth, his reach across his empire, and his divine favor. Every feather, every squawk, was a subtle reinforcement of his authority. You might even catch a glimpse of a tiny hummingbird, darting like a jewel-toned arrow, which was believed to be the embodiment of fallen warriors or the spirit of the sun god Huitzilopochtli. Beyond the sheer beauty, there was a practical, albeit peculiar, side to these aviaries. You might notice various types of eagles, perhaps golden eagles or even harpy eagles, majestic predators kept for their strength and symbolic significance. These weren't pets in the modern sense. They were living embodiments of the empire's might. A quirky tidbit: some accounts suggest that certain predatory birds were even trained for hunting, though their primary purpose in the menagerie was likely ceremonial display and the provision of feathers. Imagine being the poor attendant responsible for cleaning out those enclosures. It certainly sounds like a job that would wake you up quicker than a strong cup of coffee. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs had a truly scientific, classification-based approach to zoology, or if their understanding was primarily spiritual and practical. Was it simply a collection, or was it a rudimentary zoological study? Either way, the care and detail dedicated to these creatures suggest a deep respect and knowledge of their natural behaviors. The featherworkers, or amantika, who worked within the palace grounds, would have been highly skilled artisans, meticulously selecting, sorting, and weaving these precious feathers into dazzling works of art. You can almost hear the soft rustle of feathers as they work, the gentle whisper of ancient craft. Beyond the riot of color and sound in the aviaries, Montezuma's collection extended to an equally impressive aquatic menagerie. Imagine leaving the open-air bird enclosures and entering a cooler, perhaps slightly damp area, where the air smells faintly of fresh water and earth. Here, you'd find a series of large, carefully constructed ponds and tanks, some carved from stone, others lined with clay, all fed by ingenious systems of channels and aqueducts that brought fresh water directly from the springs of Chapultepec, miles away. This was no small feat of engineering, especially given the lack of modern pumps. It's like having a private, elaborate water park for fish, but instead of slides, you get fascinating glimpses into Mesoamerican aquatic life. You would see a remarkable variety of fish, some vibrantly colored, others camouflaged masters of their murky homes. Mainstream historical fact: the Aztecs were incredibly skilled aquaculturists, managing chinampas, floating gardens for agriculture, and also raising fish in specialized ponds. Montezuma's collection would have showcased this expertise with various species of freshwater fish, perhaps including the unique axolotl, a type of salamander that retains its larval features throughout adulthood, almost like a real-life Pokemon. Its feathery gills would wave gently as it floated in the cool water, a truly bizarre and captivating sight. But it wasn't just fish. The aquatic collection also housed a range of other fascinating creatures. Imagine peering into a clear pool and seeing large, ancient-looking turtles, perhaps soft-shelled turtles with their peculiar, leathery shells, or larger, snapping turtles, lurking in the shadows. You might even spot a caiman or two smaller, less aggressive relatives of alligators, their rough skin blending perfectly with the watery environment. They'd lie motionless, looking like submerged logs, only their eyes breaking the surface, patiently waiting. You can almost feel the gentle ripple of the water and hear the soft gurgle of the feeding channels. A quirky tidbit: some accounts suggest that Montezuma even had a special section for saltwater fish and marine creatures, which would have required an even more astounding feat of logistical planning. Imagine the effort involved in transporting live marine specimens from the Gulf Coast, hundreds of miles away, over mountains to an inland lake city. They would have needed a relay system of porters and constantly refreshed containers of water. It's enough to make your head spin, trying to picture the ancient equivalent of an intercontinental aquarium transport. It certainly puts modern logistics into perspective. The purpose of these aquatic displays wasn't merely aesthetic. These animals, particularly the fish, played a vital role in the Aztec diet and economy. The emperor's collection, however, elevated them to a symbol of his control over the natural world. It demonstrated his ability to command resources from across his vast domain and bring them to his capital. It was a living tribute, if you will. Historians still argue whether the Aztec, regardless, the sophisticated systems for maintaining these aquatic environments show a deep, intuitive understanding of ecological balance. The water flow, the oxygenation, the removal of waste, all managed without pumps or filters, relying on gravity, careful design, and constant human attention. It's a quiet testament to their mastery of hydroengineering. As you stand there, watching the silent movements of the fish and reptiles, the gentle sounds of the water are incredibly soothing. It's a moment of calm within the bustling palace, a serene glimpse into a world where even the most elusive creatures were brought under the gentle, yet firm, hand of the emperor. You might even find yourself mesmerized by the slow, deliberate glide of a large fish, feeling your eyelids grow heavy as the ancient waters whisper their secrets. Leaving the tranquil aquatic displays, you are now led towards a part of Montezuma's collection that speaks to the wilder, more untamed aspects of the Mesoamerican landscape, the enclosures for predatory beasts. The air here might feel different, perhaps a little heavier, carrying a primal scent that hints at raw power. Imagine the subtle shift in ambience as you approach, a quiet tension in the air that wasn't present among the serene fish or the chattering birds. These animals were kept for a different purpose altogether, embodying the fierce spirit of the Aztec deities and the empire's dominion over nature. You would first encounter the most revered of all Aztec predators, the jaguar. Imagine large, sturdy enclosures, perhaps with thick wooden bars or high, smooth stone walls that a cat couldn't climb. Inside, a magnificent jaguar, its spotted coat a mosaic of black and gold, might be pacing with silent grace, its muscles rippling beneath its sleek fur. Its eyes, luminous and intelligent, would track your movements with an ancient, unblinking gaze. The jaguar was deeply significant in Aztec culture, associated with Tezcatlipoca, the god of the night sky, and symbolized strength, courage, and the underworld. Keeping such powerful creatures was a profound display of Montezuma's control, not just over his empire, but over the very forces of creation and destruction. Beyond the jaguars, you might see other formidable predators. There would likely be pumas, also known as cougars or mountain lions, sleek and tawny, their movements just as fluid and silent as their larger cousins. You might also spot ocelots, smaller but equally beautiful wild cats, their coats adorned with intricate patterns. Each of these animals, despite being confined, would exude an aura of inherent wildness, a reminder of the vast, untamed forests and jungles that lay beyond the polished stones of Tenochtitlan. A quirky tidbit: some accounts mention the presence of large snakes, including venomous ones, kept in pits or specially designed enclosures. Imagine looking down into a deep, stone-lined pit and seeing the coiled form of a rattlesnake, its scales shimmering in the filtered light, or a boa constrictor, thick as a man's thigh, draped over a branch. While perhaps not predators in the same active sense as a jaguar, their potent venom and constricting power certainly put them in the category of dangerous creatures. It's enough to make you instinctively take a step back, isn't it? The thought of an ancient snake handler calmly tending to these reptiles adds another layer of awe to the Aztecs' relationship with the natural world. Mainstream historical fact: these animals, especially the jaguars, were not just for show. They were sometimes used in gladiatorial-style combat or ritual sacrifices, although perhaps not as frequently as some Spanish accounts suggest. Their primary role in Montezuma's menagerie was symbolic a living pantheon of power and a representation of the emperor's reach. They were fed, cared for, and treated with a reverence that stemmed from their connection to the divine. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs kept predatory birds like eagles in the same direct enclosures as the mammalian predators, or if their aviaries were distinct. What is clear is the dedication to providing varied habitats. The keepers would have to be incredibly brave and knowledgeable, understanding the behaviors of these dangerous animals to ensure both their own safety and the well-being of the creatures. You can almost imagine the hushed conversations among them, sharing whispered knowledge about which animal was most temperamental on a given day. As you gaze at these powerful beings, perhaps a great cat lets out a low, rumbling growl that vibrates through the ground beneath your feet, a gentle reminder of its wild spirit, even in captivity. It's a sobering yet mesmerizing experience, seeing such raw power contained, yet still exuding its inherent majesty. This section of the menagerie is a testament to Montezuma's desire to hold within his grasp not just the beautiful and the exotic, but the truly formidable aspects of nature itself, all meant to impress, to awe, and to solidify his almost divine authority. As you continue your stroll through Montezuma's impressive collection, you'll undoubtedly encounter animals that are unique to the Americas, creatures that would have been utterly unknown to anyone from the Old World. Imagine the Spanish conquistadors, upon their arrival, witnessing these animals for the first time, a blend of awe, fear, and sheer bewilderment. For you, now, it's a chance to see some truly fascinating indigenous fauna that populate the diverse ecosystems of Mesoamerica. You might be surprised by the sheer variety. Beyond the obvious jaguars and quetzal, you'd spot less dramatic but equally interesting creatures. Consider the tapir, a shy, pig-like mammal with a distinctive proboscis, lumbering gently in a dedicated enclosure. These creatures are like living fossils, ancient and peaceful, their movements slow and deliberate, perfect for easing you into a deeper state of relaxation. They look a bit like a cross between a pig and a small elephant, if you can imagine such a thing, and they be munching placidly on vegetation. Then there are the various species of monkeys, chattering and swinging through branches in their netted or caged habitats. Howler monkeys, their deep calls echoing through the quiet spaces, or agile spider monkeys, their long limbs making them masters of arboreal acrobatics. Their playful antics might bring a gentle smile to your face, a moment of lightheartedness amidst the more imposing beasts. It's funny how even thousands of years ago, a monkey doing something silly could probably still get a chuckle out of anyone. A truly quirky tidbit that might make you drift off thinking about it. The Aztecs were known to keep coyotes, not just as wild animals, but sometimes as companions or even for their pelts. Imagine a somewhat domesticated coyote, its intelligent eyes watching you, perhaps even letting out a soft, mournful howl now and then. It's a far cry from the wolves and dogs of Europe, offering a glimpse into a different human-animal relationship. This challenges our modern notions of pets versus wild animals, doesn't it? Mainstream historical fact. Many of these indigenous animals played significant roles in Aztec mythology and cosmology. The feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl, is perhaps the most famous example, embodying both avian and reptilian characteristics. But smaller animals too, like the opossum, were associated with certain deities or concepts, enriching the tapestry of Aztec spiritual belief. Every creature, no matter how humble, had its place in their intricate worldview. You might also observe the coati, a long-nosed, ring-tailed relative of the raccoon, rummaging curiously through its enclosure, its inquisitive nature on full display. Or perhaps you'd see various types of armadillos, their armored bodies a marvel of natural engineering, scuttling about with surprising speed. Each of these animals would have been carefully selected, perhaps brought from distant corners of the empire as tribute or captured by skilled hunters. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs had a comprehensive system for classifying these animals based purely on biological characteristics, or if their categories were primarily defined by their utility, symbolic meaning, or habitat. What is evident, however, is a deep observational knowledge of these creatures' behaviors, diets, and natural habitats, which allowed the keepers to maintain them in relatively good health. They weren't just collecting, they were learning. As you gaze at these unique creatures, their very existence a testament to the biological richness of Mesoamerica. You can almost hear the soft rustle of their fur or the gentle scratching of their claws. It's a quiet immersion into a world that, while ancient, feels remarkably alive and vibrant. The gentle hum of the day and the peaceful movements of these animals might lull you further into a state of deep tranquility, a perfect prelude to a good night's rest. Behind every magnificent collection, there are the unsung heroes, the caretakers, the feeders, the diligent hands that keep the operation running smoothly. In Montezuma's imperial menagerie, this was no different. Imagine the vast number of people required to manage such a diverse and extensive collection of animals. You wouldn't just see a few casual zookeepers. You'd witness a small army of dedicated individuals, each with specialized knowledge and a deep understanding of their charges. Their movements would be quiet, efficient, a gentle ballet of daily tasks performed with ancient wisdom. These caretakers, known in Nahuatl as Tilatoni or Calpuli members depending on their role, would have been highly skilled. Some would have been expert hunters and trappers, responsible for sourcing new specimens from the far reaches of the empire. Think of them as ancient wildlife biologists, navigating dense jungles and high mountains, understanding animal behaviors to capture them safely and transport them back to the capital. This wasn't just about throwing a net over something. It involved intimate knowledge of local ecosystems and the subtle art of persuasion, both human and animal. Others would have been the daily keepers, tending to the enclosures. Imagine them moving with a practiced ease, their hands calloused from years of work, their faces etched with the quiet concentration of those who spend their lives around powerful animals. They would know each animal's temperament, its preferred diet, and the subtle signs of illness or distress. You might see them meticulously cleaning out enclosures, ensuring fresh water supplies, or preparing specialized meals. It's a job that requires endless patience and a watchful eye, far more demanding than simply refilling a bird feeder in your backyard. A quirky tidbit, some accounts suggest that there were even specialized doctors for the animals, individuals with extensive knowledge of herbal remedies and traditional healing practices, applying them to sick or injured creatures. Imagine an ancient vet gently coaxing a feverish jaguar to drink a medicinal broth, or carefully setting the broken wing of a majestic eagle. This highlights a surprisingly advanced level of animal welfare for the era, moving beyond mere captivity to actual care. It's a testament to their observational skills and empirical knowledge, long before modern veterinary science existed. Mainstream historical fact. The social structure of Aztec society meant that many of these specialized roles were hereditary, passed down through families. This ensured a continuity of knowledge and expertise, with skills and traditions being honed over generations. So, the son of a master bird keeper might have grown up learning the calls and habits of every avian species, absorbing wisdom from infancy. It created a workforce deeply invested in their craft, almost like ancient guilds of animal specialists. Historians still argue whether the emperor himself, Montezuma II, actively participated in the daily care or simply oversaw the broad management of the menagerie. What is clear is his immense passion for the collection, suggesting he would have had a deep understanding of the animals and their needs, even if he didn't personally shovel the well, you know. As you observe these dedicated individuals, their movements are a soothing rhythm, a quiet testament to the symbiotic relationship between humans and animals, even within the confines of an imperial collection. The soft sounds of their work, the gentle murmur of their voices as they attend to their charges, might feel like a calming lullaby, inviting your mind to drift further into the depths of historical tranquility. It's a quiet dedication that truly brings the menagerie to life, making it more than just a collection of wild beasts, but a living, breathing testament to human ingenuity and care. With such a vast and varied collection of animals, the logistical challenge of feeding them would have been immense. Imagine the sheer quantity of food required daily. Fresh meat for the jaguars, fish for the caimans, fruits and seeds for the countless birds, and various plants for the tapirs and other herbivores. This wasn't a simple matter of a quick trip to the nearest supermarket. It was a carefully coordinated system of hunting, gathering, and farming that extended far beyond the walls of Tenochtitlan. You might almost hear the distant rustle of baskets being filled or the soft splash of nets being cast in the lakes. The feeding schedule alone would have been a monumental undertaking. For the carnivores, particularly the big cats, a steady supply of fresh meat was crucial. This likely involved dedicated hunting parties who ventured into the surrounding forests and mountains, capturing deer, rabbits, and other game. Imagine these hunters, skilled and silent, tracking their prey through dense undergrowth, all to satisfy the appetites of the emperor's prestigious collection. It was a constant demand, a daily requirement that underscored the immense resources Montezuma could command. A steady supply of fish from Lake Texcoco and its surrounding waters would also have been vital for the aquatic predators and certain bird species. You can almost smell the faint, briny tang of fresh catch being brought in. For the avian residents, particularly the fruit and seed eaters, a diverse array of fresh produce was necessary. This would have been sourced from the Chinampas, those ingenious floating gardens, and from the agricultural lands on the mainland. Think of vibrant baskets overflowing with maize, squash, beans, and an incredible variety of fruits that are now perhaps unfamiliar to modern palates. There would have been different types of seeds, specific nectar sources for hummingbirds, and even insects gathered for insectivorous species. It was a precise culinary operation, ensuring each creature received the appropriate diet. A quirky tidbit: some historical accounts suggest that the Aztecs had specialized farms dedicated to raising certain animals, like turkeys or even dogs. The Zoloit squintly, a hairless breed, was often raised for food, specifically for the menagerie. While perhaps not always a primary food source for predators, these domesticated animals could have supplemented diets or been used for sacrificial offerings. Imagine the ancient equivalent of a pet food factory, but for animals that might also end up on the royal dinner table, or worse, as jaguar chow. It gives a whole new meaning to free range. Mainstream historical fact: the Aztec tribute system played a crucial role in feeding the menagerie. Conquered or allied territories were often required to send specific goods as tribute, and this frequently included exotic animals, feathers, and various foodstuffs. This ensured a continuous flow of resources into the capital, supporting not only the royal household, but also its demanding animal residents. It was a living, breathing manifest of the empire's economic reach. Historians still argue whether the feeding regimen was purely based on empirical observation of what the animals ate in the wild, or if there was a more theoretical, perhaps even ritualistic, element to their diets. What is clear, however, is that the system worked, maintaining the health and vitality of a truly extraordinary collection. The gentle sounds of chewing, the soft lapping of water, and the rustle of leaves as an animal forages are the soothing background hum of this ancient feeding operation. It's a quiet ballet of nature and human effort, perfectly designed to help your mind settle and drift. Just as humans require care when they're unwell, so too did Montezuma's animals. The level of veterinary care and indigenous zoological knowledge within the Aztec Empire, particularly concerning this royal collection, was surprisingly sophisticated. Imagine the keepers, not just as mere feeders, but as astute observers of animal health, capable of diagnosing ailments and administering treatments based on centuries of accumulated wisdom. The air here might carry the faint, earthy scent of medicinal herbs, a subtle hint of the healing arts being practiced. You might observe a scene where a keeper is gently examining a bird with a drooping wing, or perhaps a small mammal that seems listless. Their movements would be deliberate, almost ritualistic, as they assess the animal's condition. Mainstream historical fact: the Aztecs possessed an extensive knowledge of herbal medicine, cataloging hundreds of plants and their uses, and this knowledge wasn't exclusive to human ailments. Many of these remedies would have been adapted and applied to the animals in the menagerie. Think of it as a very ancient, very green pharmacy, stocked with cures for everything from digestive issues to minor injuries. They would use poultices made from crushed leaves, give concoctions of boiled roots, or even apply specialized mud packs to soothe inflammation. Imagine the careful process of preparing these remedies, grinding ingredients with a pestle and mortar, much like a pharmacist today, but with natural elements. The understanding of dosage and the specific properties of each plant would have been passed down through generations of healers, both human and animal. It's a quiet testament to their empirical science, developed through careful observation and experimentation. A quirky tidbit that might make you ponder. Some historians suggest that the Aztecs even performed rudimentary surgical procedures on animals, such as setting broken bones or lancing abscesses. Imagine the steady hands and keen eyes required for such delicate work, perhaps without the benefit of anesthetics beyond natural sedatives. It's a far cry from a trip to your modern vet, but it highlights a remarkable commitment to the well-being of these creatures. You might almost hear the soft whimper of a recovering animal, being comforted by its dedicated caregiver. Historians still argue whether the Aztec approach to animal health was purely pragmatic, aimed at preserving valuable specimens, or if it also stemmed from a deeper, more empathetic understanding of animal suffering. Given their complex religious beliefs and the symbolic importance of animals, it was likely a blend of both. The health of these creatures, particularly those associated with deities or royal power, would have been seen as a reflection of the emperor's own well-being and favor with the gods. The keepers would also have a deep understanding of animal behavior, recognizing changes that indicated illness before it became severe. They'd know if an animal was off its food, or if its movements were sluggish, or if its calls were unusual. This observational skill, honed over years of direct interaction, was as crucial as any herbal remedy. It's like a parent knowing when their child is unwell without them having to say a word. The gentle hum of the menagerie, interspersed with the soft sounds of healing and care, contributes to the calming atmosphere, inviting you to relax and let your mind wander. The animals within Montezuma's menagerie were far more than mere curiosities. They were deeply interwoven with the fabric of Aztec society, culture, and especially their profound religious beliefs. Imagine the quiet reverence that would have permeated certain sections of the menagerie, where particular animals were seen as living embodiments of deities or potent symbols of cosmic forces. The air here would feel heavy with meaning, a sacred hush falling over you as you contemplate the spiritual significance of each creature. Every animal, from the majestic jaguar to the humble snake, held a specific place in the intricate Aztec pantheon and worldview. Mainstream historical fact: the jaguar, for instance, was intimately connected with Tezcatlipoca, one of the four principal creator gods, often associated with the night sky, destiny, and sorcery. Seeing a living jaguar, its eyes glinting in the filtered light, would not just be seeing a wild animal. It would be glimpsing a representation of divine power, of a living prayer. Similarly, the eagle was a powerful symbol of the sun and the warrior ethic, often depicted in fierce combat with a serpent, representing the ongoing struggle between light and darkness. Feathered serpents, most famously Quetzalcoatl, combine the sky-soaring majesty of birds with the earthly power of serpents, symbolizing creation, knowledge, and wind. While a true feathered serpent might not have existed in the menagerie, various birds and snakes would have been kept that evoked these powerful mythical beings. The brilliant plumage of the Quetzal, for example, was itself considered sacred, almost a direct link to the heavens. A quirky tidbit that might make you drift. Some chroniclers suggest that specific animals might have been used in private rituals or ceremonies within the palace complex, perhaps even serving as temporary conduits for divine communication. Imagine a priest or the emperor himself meditating in front of a particularly potent animal enclosure, seeking omens or guidance. It takes the idea of animal observation to a whole new spiritual level, far removed from anything we might consider a zoo today. The very presence of these creatures would have constantly reinforced the spiritual narratives that shaped Aztec daily life. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs believed these animals literally were the gods, or if they were seen as powerful manifestations and symbols of divine energy. Either way, their role in public and private religious ceremonies, and their place within the emperor's sacred collection, underscores their immense cultural and political importance. The health and vigor of these animals would have been seen as a good omen for the empire, while any illness or death might have been interpreted as a sign of divine displeasure. You might notice carvings of these animals adorning the walls of the enclosures or surrounding buildings, intricate bas-reliefs depicting their mythical roles. The soft light of the setting sun, perhaps filtering through a distant doorway, would illuminate these ancient carvings, bringing them to life with a gentle glow. The quiet movements of the animals, their natural behaviors unfolding before you, would take on a deeper, almost mystical quality. It's a soothing blend of the tangible and the spiritual, inviting your mind to wander through the ancient beliefs that shaped this remarkable collection. The subtle chirps and rustles seem to carry whispers of ancient myths, pulling you further into a state of sleepy contemplation. The quiet serenity of Montezuma's menagerie was irrevocably disrupted by the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors in 1519. Imagine the stark contrast. The peaceful, measured rhythms of the Aztec capital suddenly shattered by the thunder of horses' hooves, the clang of unfamiliar armor, and the shouts in a strange, harsh language. For the Spanish, fresh from their arduous journey, stepping into Tenochtitlan and encountering the emperor's palace, and then his incredible animal collection, would have been an experience beyond their wildest imaginings. You can almost feel their mixture of awe and disbelief, a sensation that would have quickly turned to something far less pleasant. Hernán Cortés and his men were seasoned campaigners, but nothing could have prepared them for the sophistication and sheer scale of Tenochtitlan. Mainstream historical fact. Many Spanish chroniclers, including Bernal Diaz del Castillo, who accompanied Cortés, wrote extensively about the city and its wonders. They described the grand marketplaces, the impressive temples, and the meticulous cleanliness that far surpassed any European city of time. But the menagerie, in particular, seems to have captivated and bewildered them. Imagine the faces of the Spanish soldiers, hardened by battle, as they first laid eyes on a jaguar pacing in its enclosure, or a quetzal, its feathers shimmering like impossible jewels. Their reactions were a complex blend of curiosity and fear. They recognized the power represented by these wild beasts, but they also saw them through the lens of their own European experiences, often associating exotic animals with paganism or strange, dark magic. A quirky tidbit. Some accounts suggest that the Spanish were particularly unnerved by the sight of large snakes and certain predatory birds, perhaps recalling tales of mythical beasts or fearsome dragons from their own folklore. It wasn't just zoological interest. It was a cultural clash playing out in the presence of magnificent animals. You can almost hear their muttered exclamations of surprise and perhaps a little unease. What strange devils are these? They might have wondered. Historians still argue whether Cortés initially viewed the menagerie as a strategic asset, a diplomatic marvel to impress European monarchs, or simply as another testament to Montezuma's wealth to be plundered. It was likely all three. He recognized its value as a symbol of power, something truly unique that could be presented to King Charles V. Yet, as tensions escalated, the collection became less a marvel and more a vulnerability. You can almost picture Cortés himself, perhaps with a forced smile, being led through the various sections, Montezuma proudly gesturing at his prized possessions. The emperor, perhaps genuinely trying to foster understanding, would have explained the significance of each animal, their roles in Aztec cosmology, and the meticulous care they received. The Spanish, however, would have been more focused on the gold and treasures they suspected lay within the palace, and the strategic advantages of controlling such a pivotal city. The sounds of the menagerie, once soothing, would have now been overlaid with the clank of armor and the harsh commands of the Spanish, a jarring dissonance that signaled the beginning of the end for this magnificent collection. The gentle hum of ancient knowledge and peaceful coexistence was about to be drowned out by the clamor of conquest. The initial awe quickly gave way to a cold, calculating gaze, and the fate of Montezuma's beloved animals was sealed the moment the Spanish set foot in Tenochtitlan. The tragic fate of Montezuma's extraordinary menagerie is intertwined with the brutal events of the Spanish conquest. As the political situation in Tenochtitlan deteriorated and the Spanish found themselves increasingly besieged, the animals, once symbols of imperial power and natural wonder, became casualties of a desperate struggle. Imagine the once peaceful enclosures descending into chaos, the sounds of animal distress mixing with the din of battle. During the infamous Noche Triste, or Sad Night, in June 1520, when the Spanish attempted a desperate escape from Tenochtitlan, the city erupted into full-scale warfare. Mainstream historical fact: the Aztecs, enraged by the Spanish occupation and Montezuma's death, the circumstances of which are still debated by historians, rose up in a furious rebellion. In the ensuing chaos, the palace complex, including the menagerie, became a battleground. You can almost hear the shouts of warriors, the clash of weapons, and the terrified cries of animals caught in the crossfire. The primary reason for the destruction of the menagerie wasn't necessarily malicious intent towards the animals themselves, but rather the desperate tactics of war. The large enclosures and buildings that housed the animals were either destroyed by the Spanish as they attempted to fortify their positions, or by the Aztecs as they fought to reclaim their city. Imagine the strong wooden bars of a jaguar cage splintering, or the finely woven nets of an aviary tearing, sending terrified birds scattering into the smoke-filled sky. It's a somber thought, isn't it? Picturing such magnificent creatures suddenly released into an alien, hostile environment. A quirky tidbit that adds to the grim reality. Some accounts suggest that the starving Spanish, trapped in the palace, might have resorted to eating some of the animals from the menagerie out of sheer desperation. Imagine the conquistadors, usually so disdainful of indigenous customs, reluctantly butchering a tapir or even an exotic bird, their hunger overriding any sense of cultural or scientific value. It's a stark reminder of the brutal realities of siege warfare, where survival trumps all other considerations. You might even hear the quiet gnawing of rats in the background as the sounds of desperation echo. Historians still argue whether any attempt was made by either side to preserve parts of the collection. It seems unlikely, given the ferocity of the fighting. The focus was on survival and strategic advantage, not on animal welfare. The meticulously maintained ponds would have been drained or filled with debris, the vibrant gardens trampled, and the grand aviaries reduced to rubble. The unique creatures that had been brought from across the empire, carefully nurtured by dedicated keepers, would have met various fates. Many would have perished in the fighting, trapped in collapsing structures, or killed by stray arrows and musket fire. Others might have escaped into the canals and the lake, only to find themselves in an environment they were ill-equipped to survive in, hunted or starving. The precise scale of the loss is hard to quantify, but it would have been catastrophic. As you reflect on this period, the vibrant sounds of the menagerie, the macaw's squawks, the jaguar's growls, the gentle lapping of water in the ponds fade into a mournful silence. What was once a living testament to an emperor's vision and an empire's reach became a tragic symbol of conquest and cultural destruction. The quiet beauty and order of Montezuma's zoological paradise were utterly consumed by the fires of war, leaving only fragmented memories and the echoes of a lost world. Despite the utter devastation of the conquest, the legacy of Montezuma's menagerie didn't vanish entirely. Fragments of its existence and the profound indigenous knowledge it represented persisted. Imagine the quiet, almost mournful whispers of the wind through the ruins, carrying echoes of a lost grandeur. While the magnificent structures and the vast majority of the animals were gone, the idea of such a collection and the stories surrounding it endured. Mainstream historical fact. Spanish chroniclers, despite their role in the destruction, provided invaluable written accounts of the menagerie. Bernal Diaz del Castillo, for example, marveled at the sheer scale and variety of the animals, describing them in detail in his true history of the conquest of New Spain. These first-hand observations, though sometimes embellished or viewed through a European lens, remain our primary window into what the menagerie contained. You can almost picture him, quill in hand, trying to capture the sheer wonder of a jaguar or a quetzal he'd never seen before, struggling to find the right words in his own language. A quirky tidbit that speaks to enduring knowledge. Despite the deliberate suppression of indigenous culture, some of the detailed botanical and zoological knowledge survived through oral traditions and clandestine practices. Imagine elderly Aztec healers and former keepers quietly passing down their understanding of animal behavior, medicinal plants, and the sacred significance of creatures to a younger generation, perhaps in hushed tones around a flickering fire. This wasn't documented in grand books, but etched into memory and shared in secret, a quiet act of defiance against cultural erasure. Historians still argue whether the Spanish consciously adopted any aspects of Aztec zoological management, or if they simply viewed the ruins as another resource to be exploited. While a formal continuation of Montezuma's menagerie was certainly out of the question, the concept of collecting exotic animals for display and study would eventually re-emerge in Europe, perhaps subconsciously influenced by such grand tales from the New World. The idea of royal menageries, after all, was not unique to the Aztecs. The remnants of the menagerie would have slowly succumbed to the elements, as stone crumbled and wood rotted. The once vibrant, carefully cultivated gardens would have been overgrown by wild native plants, reclaiming the land. Any surviving animals would have either been hunted, died of starvation, or perhaps a very lucky few managed to revert to a truly wild existence in the surviving pockets of wilderness around the lake. The echoes of their former glory would have faded into the background hum of a new, colonial city rising from the ashes of Tenochtitlan. Yet, the very story of Montezuma's menagerie became part of the broader narrative of the conquest, a testament to the immense sophistication of the Aztec civilization that the Spanish encountered. It underscored that this was not a simple conquest of primitive people, but the destruction of a complex and highly advanced society with its own unique relationship to the natural world. The image of the emperor's private zoo, a living museum of Mesoamerican biodiversity, continues to captivate and educate us about a world now lost. It's a quiet reminder that even in ruin, great achievements leave an indelible mark on history, floating gently in the collective memory, perfect for a peaceful evening's contemplation. In a curious twist of fate, the very concept of Montezuma's lost menagerie echoes through time, connecting directly to our modern fascination with zoos and wildlife conservation. Imagine the threads of history stretching forward, from the ancient Aztec capital to the bustling glass and steel enclosures of today's urban zoological parks. While the purposes and technologies are vastly different, the core human impulse to collect, observe, and understand the natural world remains surprisingly constant. You can almost feel the continuity, a soft hum connecting past and present. Mainstream historical fact: the idea of collecting exotic animals for display has a long and varied history across many cultures, from ancient Egyptian pharaohs to medieval European monarchs. Montezuma's menagerie, however, was unique in its scale, its integrated design, and the apparent sophistication of its care for the animals. It wasn't just a royal curiosity cabinet. It was a functioning, living repository of Mesoamerican biodiversity, arguably a precursor to modern zoological gardens in its ambition, if not its scientific methodology. Think of it as ancient groundwork for what you might experience at the nearest zoo today. A quirky tidbit to ponder: some historians even theorize that the Spanish accounts of Montezuma's menagerie, when they returned to Europe, may have subtly contributed to the growing interest in natural history collections among European elites. Imagine the tales of jaguars and quetzal, so fantastical to European ears, sparking a desire to see such wonders for themselves, eventually leading to royal menageries and later public zoos. It's a quiet whisper of influence across continents and centuries. Historians still argue whether the primary motivation for ancient menageries, including Montezuma's, was scientific study, religious symbolism, political display, or simply entertainment. It was likely a complex blend of all these factors. Just like modern zoos, which grapple with balancing conservation, education, research, and public engagement, ancient collections served multiple, often overlapping, purposes. The gentle movements of the animals, whether then or now, seem to invite contemplation, a soft lullaby of life within enclosures. Today, when you visit a modern zoo, you are in a very distant way participating in a tradition that reaches back to Montezuma's time. The focus is now on species preservation, education, and research, moving far beyond mere spectacle. Yet, the wonder of seeing a jaguar up close, the awe of a macaw's brilliant plumage, or the quiet contemplation induced by a slow-moving tapirthies are sensations that transcend time and culture. The soft sounds of animals, the rustle of leaves in their enclosures, remain a soothing balm. The enduring fascination with wildlife, from the emperor's elaborate collection to today's global conservation efforts, speaks to a fundamental human connection with the natural world. It reminds us that even when empires fall and cities crumble, the urge to understand and appreciate the incredible diversity of life persists. Montezuma's lost menagerie, though gone, continues to offer a peaceful, sleep-inducing window into a rich and complex past, proving that even boring history can be surprisingly captivating. As our journey through Montezuma's lost menagerie draws to a close, let's take a moment to reflect on the quiet, enduring allure of these ancient stories. Imagine the very last echoes of the sounds we've explored: the soft rustle of feathers, the gentle lapping of water, the distant, almost imperceptible growl of a great cat. These are the whispers of history, inviting your mind to settle and drift. The world of Montezuma, with its floating city and its magnificent animal collection, may seem incredibly distant, a vibrant dream from another time. But the human desire to connect with nature, to marvel at its wonders, and to understand its creatures remains a constant thread woven through the tapestry of time. You've walked through ancient aviaries, peered into forgotten ponds, and heard the phantom cries of creatures long gone, all in the comfort of your own space. Now, As the final images of this ancient world gently recede, allow your own thoughts to soften. The air around you is calm, the sounds of your surroundings fading into a soothing hush. There's nothing left to do but let your mind unwind, releasing any lingering thoughts or worries. The incredible stories of history, even the boring ones, have a way of calming the busiest of minds, don't they? Feel yourself sinking deeper, surrounded by a peaceful stillness. The knowledge of ancient empires and their curious customs is now a soft, comforting blanket, inviting you further into the depths of restful sleep. Just as the animals in Montezuma's menagerie found their quiet rest in their enclosures, you too can find yours now. Allow the gentle hum of the past to guide you effortlessly into the realm of dreams.